This is In Case You Missed It, your National Agriculture News Recap for the week ending February 20th, 2026. Canada's trade deficit narrowed in December, even as its share of exports to the United States hit a record low. Statistics Canada reported a $1.31 billion deficit in December, led by metals and non-metallic mineral exports. This was in contrast to a $2.59 billion deficit in November. Total exports rose by 2.6%, driven primarily by gold exports. Exports to the U.S. rose by 1.1%, but their share of total exports accounted for just over 67.4%. That's compared to 76.2% a year ago. This was the lowest share of exports to the U.S. since data collection began, other than a couple of months during the COVID-19 pandemic. Shares of exports to the U.S. on a full-year basis dropped to 72% in 2025 from 76% a year earlier. This is more likely an indication of a trend than a single-month movement, said Stuart Bergman, chief economist at Export Development Canada. India is likely to increase its import duty on lentils, an analyst said. Gaurav Jain, an analyst with AgPulse Analytica, expects the government of India to hike the existing 10% duty to 30% as of April 1st. The Indian government has repeatedly told its farmers it will purchase all of their 2026 lentils, among other pulses, at its minimum support price. The minimum price for lentils is about $771 per ton. Imported lentils are selling for about $600 per ton. That's why Jain and others expect India to hike its duty to raise the price of imported products to around $710 per ton. While still below the minimum support price, many Indian farmers will sell to private traders because it's less hassle. This would ease the burden on the government while raising prices for farmers. Jain said the duty hike is inevitable, which is why he's seen many shipments in January and February. Canada's beef and pork sectors want mandatory price reporting, a practice similar to that in the United States. That's according to industry groups' recent testimony in the House of Commons Agriculture Committee. Canadian Pork Council Chair Rene Roy said the correlation between the Canadian price and U.S. benchmark is a critical issue for the industry. He said too often the price paid to Canadian producers is not aligned with the reference market, and there's no way for producers to identify the cause. Price transparency would also correct certain price distortions, said Louis-Philippe Roy, who represents Quebec's pork sector. For example, he said American prices dropped between 2015 and 2019 due to a production surplus. Quebec producers saw a similar decrease despite actually having a deficit of production. Brenna Grant is executive director of CanFax. She said the Canadian beef industry has had reporting from 2003 to 2020. They've tried to bring it back, but packers have objected on the grounds of confidentiality. Canadian Cattle Association Executive Vice President Dennis Laycraft said he wasn't sure if mandatory reporting would work for the beef sector because the processing options are so limited. In case you missed these and other stories from across the Glacier Farm Media Network, visit AgCanada.com or download the AgCanada app.